Hi, Major Scores, and welcome to another episode of EU5. I'm continuing my Austria campaign. Where I last took off, it was in the German region. I just overthrew Bohemia, and all of Bavaria. Took over all of Bohemia's vassals that they had, especially in Western Germany on the border of France. France will ultimately be my next choice from a destination perspective. However, there is some work to be done, taking on a lot of the French and Dutch bordering independent nations that are not strong but ultimately have a lot of territories that I want in order to properly form Germany. So if the Austria series is of interest to you, please like and subscribe my channel. It really help out doing this on the side and having a lot of fun with it. But let's get into it. We start off the campaign here with Toggenburg. They are just have a couple of allies that they have in the Italian region. It's not a difficult war, but I'm trying to have as much of my borders as possible with France so that I'm prepared to take them on head on. Following the conclusion of some of these smaller campaigns, I'm still kind of growing my tax base. France seems to have been paused on their aggressive expansion into the HRE. They've not attacked the Netherlands in quite some time. The Netherlands, or Galray, has an ally right now as it currently stands with England. So the two of them combined have kind of nerfed France from further expansion. So that opens up the opportunities to me to have further expansions with some of these Western German nations that are independent and seem to be easy pickings. I've been slow from an expansion perspective. Hohenlohe is the next nation right there in like the Baden region, Western France, Eastern France, Western Germany. They've established a decent sized territory that would require a number of wars in order to take them on completely. I'd probably be able to annex more of them. They also have some of their own vassals, so if I can annex all their territories and stop a country like France and potentially the Netherlands from expanding further, I can ultimately get their vassals for free, similar to what I'm doing with Bohemia, right? I'm in the middle of improving and annexing some of the Bohemian and my old vassals prior to that war as well. It is a bit of a process just to kind of keep their relationships up while I expand and take on more territory. For Hohenlohe, I ultimately took their provinces immediately surrounding their capital to kind of break up their provincial control over the rest of their territories, which just makes the remaining territory a lot more cheaper. You can see right here, France is in the middle of a civil war, one of many that they're going through right now. I think they're kind of overstretched and maybe the nobles are a little bit too powerful. I waited for the next phase where I can go back to war with Hohenlohe and finish the job, right? They have a couple of more territories, so how can I continue to expand my territories? Guelders in the Dutch region joins this war as well, which allows me to help break their alliance block that they have with England, mainly because I'm not looking to get into a costly war with England or a long war that would require in order to peace out, just because England has, obviously a much stronger navy. I don't really have any boats. I've not concentrated on that for this playthrough. So if I can block off Guelders from the sea, ultimately blocks France from further expansion into the territories, as ultimately me making them weaker. So it was a quick piece out with them. Now taking a territory which will enable me to kind of go back to war with them. And then for Hohenlohe, it's really just kind of finishing some of the job from a territory perspective. Take more of that, being mindful of not losing my friendships that I've made with Poland, Two Sicilies, and Castile. I want to maintain those alliances so that I don't have to fight them in future wars with France. And potentially have them coming in some of those future wars as well. So there is just one further war with Hohenlohe in order to fully annex them and then capture all of their vassals, similar to what I did in the previous campaign with Bohemia. So as soon as you annex fully a territory, if they have any vassals, then those vassals become your vassals, right? Similar to EU4. So it's free territory. It's territory that doesn't seem to count in the antagonism perspective. So it makes a lot of sense. Again, it's getting Golders out of the competition here, getting them out of the war quickly without too much pain, and then just focusing my attention on Hohenlohe, who has a couple of allies, I think Provence and then Cyprus. Two Sicilies is kind of handling Provence and just kind of sieging down a province, and then I just white piece them out. And then Cyprus, it's so far away. They actually have like 10,000 troops, which is surprisingly large for a small island nation, but I don't have the ships to kind of send any over, and they don't send anything over to me, so it's just a matter of time to siege everything down at sitting on the war score long enough, and then I'm able to fully annex the remaining territories for Hohenlohe. And then, as you can see, it's just a matter of getting into the Provence nations to piece them out of the war and move on. And then from there, it's just trying to find an opening, right? It's now the 1600s. I have not yet gone to war with France. However, I did notice that I had a CB against them for a religious war, right? So it wasn't a parliament war that I had to do. And because their two allies, Hungary and my ally Castile, do not come into the religious war because they're both Catholic nations. So it opened up an area of opportunity to attack France in a 1v1, and at the same time, Hungary and Castile, France would not have a negative opinion of both Hungary and Castile. So getting an alliance in the future, proved to be more costly from them from a relationship perspective. So it kind of worked twofold. With the religious war, where I can kind of get those territories in the non-Catholic regions, in the Dutch region, siege that down, and then ultimately work towards making like a beeline in their territory, right? They have a lot of soldiers, but a lot of levies. I have a bigger standing army, and my standing army is really just kind of overpowering the sheer number and volume of levies that France kind of throws towards me. So the levies against the standing armies here in the 1600s are kind of just like cannon fodder, right? Like they're really just no match. They lose 200,000 men in this war alone, severely weakening them from an economic perspective. After this, they seem to be in a little bit of economic troubles, going through a series of civil wars, so having problems with their states as well, which just kind of proves to be valuable for me, right? Like I have desires to just form Germany, take back and push on the lands that they have. So in this war, I'm looking to kind of cut them off from a lot of their Dutch territories to make those more valuable in future wars, because they'll have no control over that, as they have to kind of go through my territory. So they lose a lot of the control beyond just like the ports that they have on the Dutch coast. So it allows me to cut them off from accessing those territories, and then start to build around forts to fortify my position in the German region. So we seize those territories, create that nice little barrier between my land and the remainder of the German territory I have to take in a future war. One of the challenges I have is I actually locked my troops into that one province. I had a territory in that French region or Western German region at the start of the campaign, and France did a good job at annexing all around my territories. And then I had a vassals that I acquired in a war that France ended up annexing in a future coalition war. So it was unfortunate, but now I have like one of my 4 stacks of troops locked in France, and getting no access and Guelders is not getting access or providing access to France. So I keep checking to see if I actually get it. I can kind of move my troops out, just because they do take quite a bit of attrition there in the Alps, and especially during the winter months. So it does kind of eat at my manpower a little bit. But I know that I'll be eventually back at war with France. So it's not the end of the world. You lose a couple hundred troops in the winter months, but as you can see, I do have plenty of manpower pool to spare, so it's not too big of a deal. In addition, the 3 remaining stacks is more than enough to handle the Dutch territories. And at the outcome of this war, I'm looking to cut off the French from taking any land from them. So I've trapped them in from the coast. I've taken all of the proper Netherlands regions, just relieving the remaining territories in western and northern Germany. And at this stage of the game, I'm not as worried about aggressive expansion. It's just a matter of sitting down on the provinces, using my vassals and union member Sweden to kind of siege down some of the Denmark territories that they have, and then getting all of the forts that they have throughout Germany and the Netherlands regions, and then eventually get the territories that I want. I wouldn't have minded giving territories more to Sweden, just because I will be able to annex them down the road, but I had the ultimate campaign of forming Germany as soon as I possibly can at this point, and I knew that if I pieced them out and then ultimately took on France, which is the next declaration here, I'd be able to form Germany before 1630 or so within the 300 years or so. So certainly not a record or speed run of doing it, but trying to keep things somewhat slow so that antagonism doesn't grow, ability to stay allied to my vassals. As you can see, I'm about 26 provinces or so. I have 480 locations, and I need 506 in order to form Germany. So it's, I already have that territory for my vassals alone, but it does take quite a bit to annex those. So another war against France. I'm able to call in the 2 Sicilies again, as they're more than willing to attack France, especially as they have provinces of interest in the Italian region of theirs. So go back to war with the goal of pushing them completely out of all proper German territory. So I've raised my vassals, raised my levies, used my vassal swarms, really just use my standing armies to siege down all of their forts, get my territory, or get my troops out of that locked territory, and then just kind of sieged everything down, right? It's more of the same, from using the support of my levies to support any kind of battles as France kind of attacks, and then my standing armies are much larger than France's, even though they have more of a volume of troops based on the total levies that they have. But as you can kind of see, there's kind of just more cannon fodder. I have stronger armies. As long as I'm able to send in 1 or 2 of my standing army stacks of 28,000, which is now at the latest tech, right? I've really kind of prioritized in the latest tech, prioritizing military, right? Getting them stronger so that I'm the dominant force in Europe as it currently stands. So, France has sure numbers, a larger population, and a larger tax base. But if I have stronger military, it certainly goes a long way in defeating them. So I'm able to, do more of the same as the first war, where I just kind of siege everything down, use my standing armies to siege down their castles, use my levies to siege down the capital provinces that don't have castles, and eventually kind of chase them all the way down to wipe their army completely, with a combination of myself and Sicily's, and then take all of the proper German territories on the border, right? And then it accomplishes my goal of forming the nation of Germany. So at the conclusion of that peace deal, you can see that the flag is there for forming the nation of Germany. Just kind of lowering my levies as it currently stands, fixing some of the economy here, but I have the ability now to form Germany in 1629. So it certainly was a fun campaign going through, defeating Bohemia and France, who at the start were much stronger than me. As you can see, my antagonism isn't too substantial. There is obviously France and Netherlands are willing to join a coalition as soon as their peace treaties are up, but there isn't really a force in Europe that can kind of withstand what I can put forward from levies and vassals perspective. And as it currently stands, the only nations that are left that are part of the German proper region, there's one more territory in, as you can see, the coalition just disbanded that were in there. So there's not really a threat or risk of the coalition kind of forming. I can form the tier 4 nation of Germany. Because I was in the HRE, I was not able to form a kingdom as the nation of Austria, but I was able to jump 2 levels and immediately form an empire as Germany, with Austria. So certainly was a fun and exciting campaign. There was one territory in France that I forgot to take in that past war, which was my mistake. So it certainly would be easy enough to take in another war. You can see there, embedded in another civil war against the nobles. So now I'm that nation of green. All my vassals turned green surrounding Dutch. I also have Sweden in my union, so I can integrate them at any given time. Have not yet started that, but certainly have dominated the European continent. I have Poland as a vassal. I have 2 Sicilies, not Poland as an ally, 2 Sicilies as an ally, and Castile as an ally. So really it wouldn't be any kind of match to push forward into the rest of, Hungary, dominate the rest of France, potentially turn on my current allies and take on their territories in wars, especially as being the military might in Europe. I'm not ready to take on the rest of the world or get as powerful as Ming. Ming's tax base is like $12,000. I think my tax base right now is 4,000 from an economic perspective, as you can see right there. But when you look at the diplomacy, if you look at the relations I went through from Ming's perspective, and they are obviously at a point where they are much larger and stronger from an economy perspective. So it would take another 200 years before I can start to challenge them. But I have the economic might of Germany as it currently stands. As I start to annex all my vassals and territories, can really start to focus on the industrialization of Germany and building out that economic might that we are in Central Europe here. So this was a fun campaign. I didn't decide to kind of pursue further to take on the remaining Dutch territories there, or start to annex France and Hungary. That would be the natural next choice, but I accomplished my goal in 300 years, forming Germany, playing somewhat tall and wide and aggressive, or as aggressive as I can be, while having fun at the same time. So Austria is a fun campaign. They certainly are a country that struggles from an AI perspective and getting swallowed by Hungary and Bohemia. But as the player in the hands, they certainly have a lot of capabilities and a lot of fun that can be had, and making them, a true Goliath in this game. So I hope everyone enjoyed this series. I certainly enjoyed making it, right? They were a fun nation to play. They certainly are one of the strongest in EU4, but in EU5, it is a little bit more of a challenge. And certainly those are the countries I like to play the most. If you like this, I'm also now in the middle of working through a Sweden campaign, which is in a unique situation in Scandinavia, right? With the ultimate goal of forming Scandinavia, and maybe creating the Northern Kingdom, where you have to kind of take on territories also in the British Isles as well. So please like and subscribe to my channel, and tune in for future releases with the EU5. Thanks everyone.